The New Level Cap podcast is a show about fun, friends, game design, and all things otherwise. Your hosts are Marco DeSantos and Brad Telton of Level 99 Games. I'm Chris Solis, your producer, and without further ado, please enjoy the show.
Do you want to make a podcast?
No.
No?
I don't want to make a podcast.
But Brad, you have entered into a catch-22. By answering, you're already making the podcast with me. Ha, ha, That was a good, 15 seconds, man. I'm impressed with your lung capacity. Oh my gosh.
No.
Oh.
Don't be a Veda hater.
Veda hater? No, you know what I hate right now? Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts?
Yeah.
Do you hate Kingdom Hearts?
Yeah, well, I've always, the reason I talk about it is because, I lovingly hate it. I love to hate on it, you know what I mean? And
yeah, unlike Dark Souls, which we hate to love.
Yeah, which we hate to love because everybody else loves it and it's so belabored at this point. But yes, I recently found out some piece of trivia in the board gaming scene that makes me hate myself, I guess.
What's that?
They're going to release Talisman Kingdom Hearts Edition.
Yeah, that's a perfect fit. That's a perfect fit.
Exactly, right?
Because it's a game where you roll dice and you move forward. And it's a very simple game with a whole lot of mechanics. And that's why it's a great fit for Kingdom Hearts.
You know, my partner was like, don't be fooled into buying it. I'm like, I'm not. It's Talisman. And they're like, what is Talisman? And I was like, Snakes and Ladders? It's that, but with extra bells and whistles.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
It is pretty much just Snakes and Ladders with extra bells and whistles. But, Brad, why do you hate Kingdom Hearts? I've heard some news recently that has gotten me quite interested.
So I tried to play through Kingdom Hearts 3. As you know, Kingdom Hearts 3 is the third game in the Kingdom Hearts series that I've played, following Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. So you'd presume that I could play this game, right? I actually went and watched a couple YouTube synopses so that I would be okay with the famously complex plot of this game. So I started playing the game. I got to about Twilight Town, and you know, monsters pop up, you mash X. There's 15 different ways to mash X to make the monsters go away, but they just don't go away fast enough no matter how many times you mash X. And I just couldn't tell what was going on. And then I got to the story segments, and they started getting to the data soras, and I still couldn't tell what was going on. So I'm like, well, I've already fumbled through 8 hours of this game. It's probably I fumbled through 4 or 5 hours of that game at that point. And I was like, I'm not going to keep waiting for this game to get good for another 5 hours. I'm done.
I see.
So my favorite part was flying the gummy ship, if that tells you anything about my Kingdom Hearts experience.
Oh my gosh, Kingdom Hearts. I don't know how you could mess it up. But welcome to the new episode of the New Level Cap podcast, where we have resolved to now embargo Kingdom Hearts forever.
Are we going to leave that in? Or are we just going to throw shade for 5 minutes on Kingdom Hearts apropos of nothing and then go on to start the podcast?
Sure, why not?
Okay, if you can fit it in the time, why not?
I've look, I'll cut it out otherwise. Is this segment part of the thing, or is this a editorial segment?
I don't know. I don't even know what's happening anymore.
I'm so confused.
We probably have to dive in and ask Data Marco to figure it out.
Yes. Don't forget Shadow Brad and Semnus, because Semnus is going to be there no matter what you do, right?
Yeah. What's my division, or what's my Organization 13 name? Let's see. It
has to be something weird. You need to have X in your name, right? Because that's our requirement. So you have to be Savid or Danix or something like that.
Let's see. Yeah, it's probably. I'm getting Daxurb.
Daxurb
seems to be Daxurb.
Daxurb isn't bad. Socrum is mine, of course. Let's just be very clear. Socrum is my Organization 13 name. My weapon is a laptop that is also a gun. There you go. It's that's my character design. I have a black hood, yellow hair, and 16 belts.
Why such a low belt score?
Low. That's low? I'm sorry. I'm not powerful enough, It's just part of my power level. All right, no, but
this has gone too far.
It's gone too far. Let's start the podcast. I'll probably cut some of that out. Hello and welcome to this latest episode of the New Level Cap podcast, featuring me, your host, Marco DeSantos, also known as Mechanic Critic, and with me is my very amazing co-host, owner, god of Level 99 games himself.
The owner god of Level 99 games.
Yes.
What kind of a title is that?
I don't know.
You don't see that on a business card every day.
Yeah, and it's certainly unique. Brad Talton Jr., who didn't say his name after I introduced him.
Oh, yeah, I'm Brad Talton Jr.
Yeah. Please, Brad Talton was my father.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
don't
literally.
Don't get confused.
Yeah, I guess literally. So, welcome. We're here to bring you a new episode of Design Talk and Mechanical Talk. And Brad and I have collaborated for the past 5 minutes on shading on Kingdom Hearts. Therefore, our latest episode, this episode, will be about cooperative mechanics and how you can implement them in your game and what they can do for your game experience. So let's start it off with a banger by having Brad tell us, what are co-op mechanics?
Well, this may not be completely obvious from the basic premise, but when you cooperate with other people, you work together with them for a mutual goal, and you win together as a team. By achieving that goal. The co-op mechanics are the mechanics that enable us to cooperate or to coordinate with one another. And that's an interesting dichotomy, cooperation versus coordination. But we'll talk further about that as we get deeper into the cooperative mechanics pool.
Yes. So it's very important to understand that cooperation is oftentimes a thing that you don't think about when you play board games. Not a lot of board games have co-op mechanics, but a lot of them do have.
It's a significant genre these days. It used to be that it was pretty rare to find, but nowadays you do find a lot of co-op games. And they range from being really intense strategic co-ops to kind of being group activities that we all participate in together. And there's a whole spectrum there.
Well, okay, I guess that's true. And if I really think about it, like when you say like tabletop gaming, people like the only game people ever think about is legit a cooperative game 100% of the time. So, Dungeons and Dragons, in case nobody got that. But yeah. Yeah. So, Brad, let's talk about cooperation. How do games make use of cooperative mechanics? Why? What are the categories? I mean, like, I don't know. Is there different kinds?
So we could open this up a little bit, and we could say that any game where you can work together with other people has some co-op elements, right? You've got your fully cooperative games, when these are things like your Pandemics and your Flashpoint Fire Rescue, games like that where you either all win or you all lose together. So we're all working completely together on the same goal. Mm-hmm. Then you sort of have your semi-co-ops, which are like Shadows over Camelot or Battlestar Galactica, where we're probably on the same team, but maybe one of us isn't. Like, we don't really know if it's fully cooperative or not.
Yeah.
Right? But we have to assume that the players are working with us, or else we won't be able to achieve our objectives.
Well, it's not just that, right? There are certain games where, how do I put it? I forgot the name of the game. It was like something Ocean Masters or whatever, where, or like something about Ragnarok. Or Vikings, where everyone is actually competing against each other, except some of the tasks in the game are so monumentous for one player to achieve by themselves that everyone is forced to cooperate on it, because if that thing resolves, everyone loses. So
yeah. I think that's kind of a third sort of category is you have these, I guess, collusion games where we have to work together, or we get to work together, but we don't necessarily need to work together. We're trying to, and that kind of falls in the semi-cooperative group as well, where we're not on the same team, but we are cooperating. There are avenues for cooperation and for mutual beneficence between us.
Yeah. You know why I mentioned this topic? You know why I picked this topic for this week?
Why is that?
Because I've been playing a lot of Millennium Blades Collusion, which is ironically not a semi-co-op. It's kind of like a melding of both. Because co-op game, the new team mode introduced in Collusion is a fully cooperative mode that is PvP still, right?
Well, so I guess that would be, you have an ally, and you and your ally are working together against another enemy. It's not truly fully co-op because there is a human opponent force, right?
Yeah.
So like I think we would say that like the boss mode is fully cooperative, but the team mode is really just semi-cooperative. Like you have a team member and you win and lose together with them, but you're also competing. I mean,
See,
where do you draw the line, right?
Where do you draw the line? Exactly.
Having a team member? Is it is it just when you can work together, but you are not truly team members even?
Yeah.
There's a lot of degrees. And it's a big space to explore.
Yeah, but really, I think the big separation here is, for the sake of definition and discussion, right? Fully cooperative games are all the players play with each other as friends.
And semi-cooperative, some players may be working against other players or working only for themselves, but the potential for cooperation or the existence of cooperation is in the game.
Yeah. And I think this is a very fun thing to explore, and I feel like it's not something that a lot of games tend to explore. Not necessarily because I don't think anybody makes co-op games, but I do feel like there's a lot of design space left, because a lot of our interaction, or a lot of game design and game mechanics, especially in video games, lend themselves to conflict, right? When you learn programming for a video game, the first thing you think about is collisions. And what's the first game mechanic you can attach to collisions? Hitting things, right? So, and I feel like co-op games have a lot of design space unexplored simply because everybody's too focused on the easy way, quote unquote, which is to create conflict as a means of engagement.
Really, I think there's quite a few cooperative, two-player cooperatives out there. The really popular one these days is called Fog of Love. And it's you work together with another player to kind of build this romantic comedy script. And I haven't played it yet myself, but it's been blowing up.
Brad.
They do especially well around Valentine's Day, as you might imagine.
Brad, this sounds awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I need to play this.
Yeah.
We should play this, but not necessarily with each other.
Yeah. But so when you have games like this where we're cooperating, but we don't have full information of the other player's sides, so games like this or Hanabi, or like you're saying, a prisoner game, those are called coordination games. And this is the technical term in game theory. And in the coordination game, we are trying to work together, but we don't have the complete tool set or the complete information so that we can't solve the game, because the coordination element is the game. Because with a lot of games like Pandemic, you have full information, and one player can just drive the entire game or play all 4 seats if they want to.
Yeah.
And sometimes teamwork tends to break down.
Well, I feel like that's a big problem with some of the cooperative games, and maybe why I feel like games like Pandemic don't necessarily fit into the fully cooperative, because it becomes less of let's all play together and have fun, and more of one smart person just does everything.
Yeah. Well, they truly are fully cooperative. The trouble is that they're also fully coordinated, which means that that you only need one brain to operate all the seats. And that's, as long as the players can play around that, it's fine. It's when players demand an optimized experience, when they try to play it as good as they possibly can. That's when the fun and the game kind of breaks down. It's ultimately a flaw. I think a game that asks the players not to play optimally is kind of fundamentally, it's got some fundamental flaw to it.
I see.
But that doesn't prevent people from having a good time with it.
Oh, yeah, definitely true. I think
it's a thing.
So I think one important point of discussion I want to bring up right now is to help our listeners understand what you just said. Yeah, if the roles in your game feel like one player's set of actions just chopped up into smaller bits so that you can justify having more players, then it might mean that your design is a bit lacking, huh?
Most of these games, I think, begin as solo games, right? And then from the solo game, you say, well, how can we break it up so that multiple people can play? And but there needs to be another jump there where you say, how do we make it so that multiple people want to play? How do we introduce coordination into the game? Because in a full co-op, the only games are going to be skill or coordination. it's not going to be solution or solving or strategy, because the players will have complete communication and will synchronize their strategy and their actions.
Yeah, and I feel like that might be something that is a downfall of these kinds of games. But before we head on deeper into that, let's move on over to a small break where Brad and I can compose ourselves and hopefully cooperate with the world to bring you more finer points on cooperation. Brad, take us to the break, please.
Well, you just did. Break time.
The Level 99 Games official Discord is the best place to find fans of your favorite games. Talk strategies and even find online play. You can find a link to the Discord in the description.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Marco and I are here. We are composed and coordinated, and we're ready to cooperate to bring you the next segment of this podcast. Marco?
My cooperation meter is at 100%. Quickly, grab my hand so that we can perform our special attack.
Is this a Pacific Rim reference or an Evangelion reference?
It's all of them, I guess. I mean, like JRPGs with friendship. I mean, like, literally every trope.
That too.
Yeah, so quick, grab my hand so we can perform our special team attack.
All right. Chrono Trigger, go.
All right, so we've combined our powers, and now we're going to bring you the second half of this episode where we talk about the pros and cons of co-op mechanics in games. Not simply just, whether or not they're poorly or greatly implemented, but that co-ops are a fundamentally different experience compared to other types of games, right? Like, you can't just add a co-op mechanic into your game and expect it to play around the same, right?
The whole game takes on a new light. Like, you change that fundamental structure of, well, what do I want to be doing and why, and what's the reward for this thing? And you don't have to change any other mechanics. You've got a wholly different game.
Yeah,
and this is why, co-ops are such a different... It's almost more than a different genre, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, at the end of the day, adding co-op mechanics to your game, again, like you said, fundamentally changes it. So it's not just something like, oh, I added in a catch-up mechanic and now this thing happens. Like, that doesn't fundamentally change how people interact with your game. Adding co-op mechanics does, right? Like compare Tetris to co-op Tetris for whatever reason. Like, imagine having two people...
Battle Royale Tetris.
I mean, Battle Royale Tetris, I guess. Tetris 99.
But cooperative Tetris sounds a lot more fun to me.
Right. I just don't know how it would be. Like, maybe one person does a side game that determines what blocks get sent to you or something.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, what if you're playing Tetris and I am playing Wario's Woods, and so I have a little guy that can walk around and drop bombs into your Tetris stack?
Ooh, to clear some stuff that you don't like? Or stuff like that. Oh, that would be cool.
That would be a cool game. Like, asymmetric cooperative puzzle game.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. The coordination there is really important. I would say one of the best cooperative video games on the market right now, Overcooked.
It's frustrating, isn't it?
But it's so good. And Overcooked is a true, fully cooperative game. We all win together. We all have one score. There's no MVPs, right? But what makes it interesting, what makes it fun, it's not that we have this challenge, right? Once you automate your kitchen, once you solve the kitchen, the game is kind of over. You're just executing.
Yes.
What's fun about it is when we go into a kitchen and now we have to solve the kitchen while adapting to all this crazy stuff that's going on in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, what makes this game great is that it's a true coordination game. We have to be constantly communicating, constantly adapting to the needs and the changes in the stage, and coordinating our efforts so that we can time everything together. And it's that coordination element which really makes the game interesting, and it makes all the players feel relevant.
And, building on that, I feel like coordination is a very important part of any good co-op game. At least to me, right? Like, because I don't necessarily feel that Pandemic or any of the solved non-coordination games are that engaging for me. Mostly because in coordination games, you want to hear everyone's opinion. It encourages players to talk to each other because they have to or else they'll lose, right? So I'm a big player of games like Monster Hunter. And
Mhm.
Monster Hunter is basically this, right? Like, you can sure play it
Yeah.
alone, right? But if you want to beat Bahamut or whatever, because that's a thing.
Yeah, that's not the proper way to play the game alone.
Yeah,
You want to
yeah.
be you need team members. You need to be partying up.
Yeah, and nothing is as cool to me as, like, this is why I love tabletop RPGs or Monster Hunter. It's because, like, the concept of forming and creating a party strategy with 4 people or 4 other people is so amazing to me, because then you'll be like, oh, I want to fulfill this role, I want to do that thing, and that just increases player interaction and engagement with the game. Because not only are they invested in actually winning, they're invested in seeing their specific strategy or coordination work out, and that's awesome, right? Yeah.
And it's the fun of working together to solve these challenges that makes these cooperative games so endearing to players. And so I'd say that's the real advantage of co-op, is that everybody can be a winner and everybody can make a contribution.
Oh, so
Like, this is the
beautiful.
real advantage. This is what you gain when you put co-op into your games. We're all encouraged to work together to win together.
And I feel like that, again, going back to our values as level 99 games should bring people together. And that's why I feel like, of all of our games, Millennium Blades Collusion specifically, as well as the upcoming 7th Cross, are some of my, like, most anticipated ones. Mostly because a lot of our games are, player versus player, and not a lot of them are player versus game. In the most recent weeks, some of the most fun I've had is playing co-op Millennium Blades with people, testing it, and then just going like, oh, look, we made the boss lose 16,000 points. Good job, everyone. And we all laughed, and it was funny because we all coordinated that, and we all were like, oh, what cards do you have? Oh, I have these cards. Oh, look at this, look at that. And it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Oh my gosh, yeah, put that cigar in your mouth and there's an explosion and we ride a Van Diesel out of here. So Brad, that's I had to mention him. He had to be here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Van Diesel is almost on that Kingdom Hearts level of anathema.
He is my boy. You do know that they're on our official Discord server, the link for which you can find in the description down below. If you type semicolon, or is it colon? No, colon, Van, colon, it brings up the Van Diesel face, and
I'm sure that you had everything to do with that, Marco.
Oh, absolutely. So that's great. We have Van Diesel emojis in our Discord. What else do you need? That's all you need to join the Discord. But Brad, we keep talking about how great co-op mechanics are, but they're not always great, right?
Yeah, and yet so many people hate co-op games.
Why?
A lot of co-op games that are, that have this fundamental flaw, right? That they're basically a multiplayer, a group activity, even an exercise. And when a game becomes solved, it is an exercise you just have to complete it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what so the co-op games, there are a couple different ways to mitigate that, but let's talk about the problem. The real problem is, if you have full information, if you have full control in a turn-based game, and you have unlimited time, one player can play all seats. And so often in a group you'll have a dominant player, we call this like an alpha player problem, where this player can play the game, or rather than teaching you to play your own character, will just play your character for you. Or if you try to make a move that's suboptimal, they will let you know that your move is suboptimal and should be improved. As you can imagine, it's not very fun to play with these kind of players because they take away your agency.
The worst.
Yeah.
I dislike those so much.
I mean, thankfully, like, these people are not hard to identify, right? Like, if there's an alpha player in a group. So this is really a problem for pickup games. When I go to a game store and 4 random people sit down to play, a cooperative game with me, then, I run that risk of meeting an alpha gamer. But it's generally not a problem for groups that understand who they're playing with. Because either I know there's an alpha player in my group where I'm okay with that, or I just don't play with them. We don't bring these games out when they're around.
Yeah, smart. You don't have to play with an alpha player if you know they're an alpha player.
Yeah, but games have tried various ways to overcome this. The easiest and most classic one is to say, well, what if all the players aren't sure that they're working together? Then you can't give good advice. You can't, tell other players what to do because maybe they have their own agendas. And so let's introduce a traitor to the game or secret roles, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, then the players will not totally understand what they're trying to optimize, right? Other players might be working to undermine the others.
Yeah.
But that can be tough too, because if a game is not obtuse, if it's clear-cut in its goals, then it's pretty easy to see who's working towards those goals and who's not working towards those goals.
So I feel like this traitor mechanic cannot exist with near full information, right? So of course the role or the secret role will be hidden, but if everything else in your game is public and seen, like for example, oh no, a dragon has attacked the city, we need everyone to help, and the player's like, nah, I'll just go buy potions at this shop, I guess, right? Like that.
These games tend to start relying really heavily on secret information. So like in Battlestar Galactica, if we need to do a challenge, what happens is we all throw a card into the hat, and then the cards get shuffled and revealed. And then we see that, hey, one of the people participated in this threw in a negative card. And, and you realize, yes, there's a traitor in our midst, but we don't know who it was.
Yes. And I feel like that's the other way that these kinds of games have essentially tried to alleviate the alpha player problem, which is via secret information. And I guess that's kind of true, right? Like, if there's no perfect information, then the alpha player can't optimize, because what are they going to optimize but themselves, right? So that's great. One problem I tend to have is that this is building on the alpha player problem, is that co-op games, even if they're pure coordination, even if they're great games like Monster Hunter, is that they're very contingent on the people you're playing with.
Yeah. I mean, when you're forming a team, it's your team that carries. And like you said, we win or lose together. So if we are, if you're playing with people that don't form a great team, then you're probably going to lose together. But I think that's true in any exercise where you have to cooperate with other people.
Yeah, exactly. And, but just because it's true for all exercises where you have to cooperate with people, it doesn't mean that it's not a negative, right? Like, at the end of the day, as somebody, like, you've played Heroes of the Storm, I've played League of Legends for years, and nothing is worse than getting paired with someone who doesn't want to even try, Like, they enter into the game, and then they lose at the start, and they're just like, oh, I guess I won't try, or whatever. And I feel like I guess to borrow a computer sciencing term, there's a single point of failure in any cooperative game, wherein if one of the players on your team decides to stop working towards your common goal, then you're basically gimped for the entire game, because the game is built around the knowledge or the expectation that everyone is working towards the goal. And if the players start breaking that expectation, then it just becomes unfun for everyone, right?
There aren't really a lot of great mechanics for dealing with bad actors like that. You have to do something on a very high level to be able to drop players out of your game in midway through.
And this is why I feel like Werewolf is such a great semi-cooperative game.
I guess, there's certainly teams, and they're certainly working against each other, and they win or lose together. Yeah. So I guess that falls into the semi-cooperative group.
And, and if somebody is being a downer or whatever, even if they're on your team or whatever, you could, in the game, just have them kicked out by everybody else. So I guess it self-corrects in that way. And that's why Werewolf, like, as much as people dislike Werewolf for, like, people getting kicked out early, I still feel like Werewolf sometimes has its advantages in the form of stuff like that. It's like if somebody's being a Debbie Downer or a Douglas Downer or whatever, you can just, like, throw them into the bin and go, like, all right, we kill you then, I guess, because you're being such a jerk, right? And that's fine. Like, they get their comeuppance. And I guess one last thing I want to bring up before we end this episode is cooperation has to feel like it's a natural thing you have to do to win the game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, a lot of games, like, maybe it's like a theme mismatch or a mechanics mismatch, but in a game, for example, wherein the mechanics are like BattleCon, say it's BattleCon, you and your friend are punching each other, and that's how you win the game, by punching the other guy so much that they lose or die. The real question is, if you introduce the co-op mechanic that's like, oh, but sometimes you have to shake hands and love each other and hug. It doesn't seem very intuitive or great. So it'll feel weird if the game incentivizes you to start cooperating with each other at a weird time where 5 minutes ago you were killing each other, right?
I understand what you're going for in that. That's kind of a weird example. But
yeah, can you give me a better example, Brad?
It's a difficult thing to explain.
Yeah.
But I think the idea that you're going for is not only do you have to provide a means for players to work together, but you have to provide a reason for them to play together. Like, if I'm playing doubles tennis and my partner is, Serena Williams or something, the best thing I can do is probably go sit on the back line and get out of the way.
That's
right?
true.
And so you don't just want to give players an opportunity to cooperate. You need to make it advantageous and even necessary to coordinate.
I think that's a better. I think you worded it better. Oh, of course you worded it better. But yes, that's essentially what I mean, right?
Yeah. Because so it's not just about splitting your solo game up into multiple roles, but it's also making sure that those roles have to rely on one another to succeed.
And that brings us back to alpha gaming, right? Because the alpha gamer will just literally just jape all the roles in order to succeed. But in reality, there should be a reason or a mechanical advantage to doing that cooperation with other people, because otherwise it's going to feel weird and it's going to feel a disconnect in your game, and people are going to feel like you're shoehorning them into cooperation. Like, if the cooperation is mandatory, but then like the cooperation doesn't benefit you in any way, except other than the game saying, if you don't do this, you lose, then it doesn't feel like it's a good adaptation of what cooperation should be or coordination should be.
There's one cooperative game that I think is worth checking out if you haven't played this yet. It's called Magic Maze. And this is pretty extreme. It's basically like we're walking through a maze, and each one of us is holding a different arrow on the controller. If we need to walk up, I just have to look at you in an angry way until you push the up button for me. And that's basically Magic Maze. There's a little bit more to it than that. It's a couple of different things, but that's the idea, is that we're all kind of controlling this one group, this one single pawn, moving it around this maze and trying to find our way out through real-time cooperation.
That's pretty cool. That reminds me of this one game that I saw. That was a video game called, like, I'll Form the Head, I think is the name of the game, where you and your friends have to co-op control a Megazord, and each one of you is a limb or torso or head. So yeah, stuff like that.
Well, that about sums it up for cooperative mechanics. There's a ton more to say, of course, but we could do a whole podcast on just this topic. So I would say the best thing to do is play some cooperative games. See what you like, what problems you observe, and see if you think some of the things we've talked about couldn't be brought into a game. Make it a little bit better.
Yeah, that's true. And do tell us in the comment section down below if there are some co-op games that you feel we didn't cover, or you feel fix a lot of the problems we've encountered, or at least a lot of the problems we've talked about on this episode. Please tell us in the comment section down below. I'd be very interested to read about them and discuss with you, because that's what this podcast is about, Brad. We cooperate with our fans to make all of us better at designing games.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the New Level Cap podcast. I would like to thank all of you for listening. And please, if you like this episode, give us a like, give us a subscribe, or share us with a friend. And if you hate it, share it with an enemy. As usual, it's been me, your host, Marco De Santos, also known as Mechanic Critic. And with me has been my cooperative collaborator, Collusion Boy,
Brad Talton. And as always, we want to wish you happy gaming and good night.
Good night. Thank you, World of Design. Thank you, and good night.
The New Level Cap podcast is produced by Level 99 Games. Join us next Wednesday for more design talk and shenanigans. Thank you for listening.